napkin math really quickly. If you're trying to be a 10% profitable company after paying yourself and you have, $250,000 of sales, you have to think about what can you afford to both pay yourself and pay someone else. So what is the general principle, Bruce, from a percentage standpoint? Napkin math, like you're tipping, like someone flipped out the tip thing. What percentage of $250,000 should go to owner's payroll and employee payroll? Because the owner is an operator here, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm curious as to the margins. I mean, what would you say? Maybe half goes to just garments and other cogs at the gate?
Yeah, I'd say about 50%, right? So 50% is your cost of goods sold and the price it takes to maybe produce it. So, at Campus Ink, we say that 8 to 10 cents on the dollar is what it takes to produce the shirt. That's our calculation.
Okay.
Right. And then we say, there's another 10 to 15% on the back office, right? And then, and so what you want to look at is say, like, let's just take 30% of $250,000. 30% of $250,000 is $75,000. So if you did $250,000 in sales, $75,000 should be allocated to payroll and probably yourself. So that's not a lot of money.
Yeah.
Right. In the grand scheme of things, let's just say you're a 10% profitable company. Let's just call it $100,000 is what the owner can split with their employees. That's not a ton. Right.
And so if you're maybe one full-time, probably a part-time person,
maybe one full-time, maybe a $20 an hour employee. Right. And so what you want to start to think about is this ratio of revenue per employee. Really strong companies might have a ratio of $300,000 per employee, but only doing $250,000, $300,000 in sales, you probably can only have one employee working with you if you are paying yourself as an employee. So it's really a 2-person operation. Does that sound reasonable?
I think so. So maybe let's call it 1 to 1.5. Now, what would that role be? So you're getting started, you broke 50 to 100K. That's an incredible starting point. You're looking at the first person when I get to 200, 250. What do you think that is? Is that operations or is it front office?
So I think we have to split our business up into production, operations, right? And sales, or front office work. So front office and back office, front of house, back of house, right? You as an owner have to realize what you're good at. Like if you're the great salesperson, then you have to hire the screen printer. If you're the great screen printer, you need to hire the front office. So it has to be the opposite of what you are doing. It can't be the same. I think thinking about our friends here, right? If someone's a great printer, in the industry, right, then they have to hire for the opposite. We could take a couple of our friends, for instance, right? Who's a friend of ours early on that was probably crazy at printing.
Could I ask maybe another question then? Is that
okay? Fine.
What do you think is the most valuable thing that they could be doing? Because I definitely agree that, if they're able to do these crazy quality prints, whatever it is, technical stuff that they're trying to do, and they hire someone else to do sales, is the largest value add being able to do those crazy technical prints? And maybe the answer is yes right now, but is it at 1 million in sales? Does that continue, or is it okay for it to be there now? Because you're right. And I do think a lot of folks obviously get in this business because they are passionate about the art and they are passionate about the print process. And that's really cool.
It's a double-edged sword. It's dangerous to a certain degree because you can get stuck in the ink and never get out of it.
Whoa. All right. Trademark.
Banger alert. But this is where you see businesses thrive that are like, they have co-founders, right? Like I look at a Stoked on Printing with Shane and Kevin, right? Where one person is the front, one person's the back, right? Or a husband and wife operation. This is where you start to see that. I think this early on, you can't over worry about, you have to do what you're good at. Yeah. And you can't worry too much about like being so high level, because What you're really trying to do is break to that 3, 4, 500K range where now you can hire 2 or 3 people. I think the fear is everyone invests in their production first and their sales last. And that, I think, is the double-edged sword, is getting stuck there. Where they're like, I don't have a front office person. I just keep doing it all. That's dangerous.
All right. I like it. So it's really the opposite of your different skill set. All right. Stage 2, 500K, or is it higher?
I think it's 500K. So if we're working on the same ratio, this is 2 to 3 employees, right? This is a business that spends, call it, $120,000 on payroll, maybe some owner's comp in there for another 30,000, right? And maybe trying to get 5 to 10% profit. So these are where you're going to have 2 to 3 employees. And here is where I think the mistake is made, is everyone just hires more screen printers and they don't counterbalance on the other side. This is where the owner will say, I just handle all the intake and I just have printers in the back that print. And this is where I think the critical mistake is made, where for every back office, you need to hire a front, or you need to have some sort of formula starting.
Oh, interesting. So what do you think is the ideal structure here? So if, let's say the owner is now jumping to the front, I'm assuming 1 to 2 people in addition to the owner. So 1 is a printer. That leaves you 1 to 2-ish more. Where do you place? Are you having like more of an account manager that's helping? Are you having someone, prep screens, or is the printer prepping as well?
So at Campus Ink, when I first bought into the business, maybe I could help give you a little bit of the org chart very early on. This is when we're at $750,000.
Okay.
So I had 2 business partners and 2 screen printers, and a guy that folded shirts in the afternoon occasionally, Cleve.
Okay.
And I immediately took the role as front desk person. Because I was front desk person, I also did the purchasing, and my business partner did the check-in and the staging, and then he had 2 printers on the floor printing, and that was $750,000. So you have to start to think about this input-output machine. Someone has to take the order, someone has to purchase the shirts, someone has to order the shirts, check in the shirts, burn the screens, stage it. And so we run into this same problem again, is where's the next bottleneck for the business? I think this is where you see the front office person also folding shirts, also bagging and tagging, also purchasing. It's like this is the person with 20 hands, right? And I think at this stage, you have to hire a front desk person or an email answer, phone picker upper. You have to have this.
So this front office person's a superhero.
This is our Mila.
Yeah.
Right. So Mila, who now runs our entire production, she started at the phones. And then she was picking vinyl in between, and she was making deliveries, and she was bagging and tagging, and she was heat pressing. But then she would also answer emails in the morning, in the evening. But the whole idea there is I didn't have to do order entry, and I didn't have to answer emails. There was someone there that could do it.
Got it.
And could you perhaps, Bruce, does that have to be a full-time employee? Could that be a VA?
I mean, not if they're also going to the back to helping, because you talk about folding, checking in, other occasional that's not.
Would you split the role up and say like hire a VA as a secretary so that you can focus more time on hiring for other things?
If you can get it on the customer service and order entry side, yeah. My worry though is, especially at that size, the customer interactions. Yeah, I think yes. If you could find the right person, and I think that they can hop on the phone, they can do email, they're available during work hours, I could see it. But I do think, thinking back to that time, I was so cautious of customer interactions, and maybe too much so. But I was like, how are we writing this back? Are we going a little bit above and beyond on this? Are we how are we handling this and so on? I personally, that would be hard for me to give to someone, even if they're in the States, like, someone in Texas or.
So is this
state.
the transition from owner starting to really like, is what you're saying, it's more important for the owner of the company to be front office, talking to customers, answering emails as quickly as possible, giving the best experience they can when they're growing and they're still small.
Dude, you know what? This makes me think that maybe this was the time that skill set of being able to, really build a team that's going to do those important tasks, regardless of if they're full time or not, or like physically in your building or not. Like this was the beginning of it. And like my gut is like, no, like I have to answer that. I have to enter this in. I have to call back the person. I need to do this. But yeah,
That's
I
a little
think you're
chaotic.
right.
I think it's a little chaotic, but I think that's the grind. I don't think you can dodge that.